welcome to the latest episode of the B Movie Club. I'm your host Kevin, and this week we'll be discussing the 1984 classic Red Dawn, starring Patrick Swayze, Charlie Sheen, C. Thomas Howell, Jennifer Grey, Leah Thompson. The list goes on and on. It's an all-star cast. For those of you guys joining us for the first time, the B Movie Club. We like to discuss old films, old to me, movies that have come out since like the 70s, 80s, 90s. Things that maybe we haven't been talking about as often as we should lately. Forgotten classics, guilty pleasures. If you have any suggestions, feel free to send them to me. You can reach me at Twitter at KD9575. On our page on Facebook, the original B Movie Club. Don't forget to click the like button, a little thumbs up. And of course on our YouTube page at KD9575 or the B Movie Club. Send in your favorite scenes, questions, comments, anything you'd like to say, send them on over. Subscribe and tell a friend, please, why won't you? This week, Red Dawn. It takes place at the time, the near future. There's still the Cold War going on. The United States' great enemy was the Soviet Union. And essentially what happens is they invade. The Russians invade along with the Cubans and the Nicaraguans. All invade. And essentially 6 high school students escape from the paratroopers coming down into the mountains. And essentially become rebels. You know, they attack the Russians. They basically pick up weapons as they go, and are freedom fighters. What can you say? You find out during the course of the film that essentially it's World War III, but NATO is dissolved. Basically, Europe is staying out of this one. It's just us versus all the communist nations, essentially. And what are we going to do? You know, it's up to these 6 teenagers. Well, 6 teenagers and an obviously 35-year-old Patrick Swayze. What can you do? Patrick Swayze is the older brother, Jeb, who is he's leading this small group. You also have Charlie Sheen, who's the younger brother. C. Thomas Howell, and a few other kids. Along the way, they pick up some daughters of like one of their friends, Leah Thompson and Jennifer Grey, who don't look like sisters. I don't know. Anyway, like I said, they become freedom fighters. They are known as the Wolverines. Why? Because that was the name of their high school football team. Okay, whatever. Over the course of the movie, they seem to know a lot of what the Russians are planning. They're able to ambush them at every scene. Cause big problems. Okay? Things you might want to know about this movie. It takes place in Colorado, the Rockies. But it was actually filmed in and around Las Vegas, Nevada. I don't know why that's important. At the time this came out in 1984, it actually had the most violent scenes of any movie up to that point. Literally 2.32 violent scenes per minute throughout the course of this movie. It was a record at that time. If you get the Red Dawn special edition DVD, you could literally have a tally for every violent scene that occurs. So there you go. Is it a little unbelievable? Of course. You have 6 teenagers taking on the Russians, and it literally is until like 2 hours into the movie before they take their first casualties. What can you say? Like I said, they always seem to be one step ahead of them. They were able to ambush them. They knew when the troop movements were occurring. How's this happening? I don't know. No one gets so much to hang now for the first 2 hours of the movie. What are you going to do? This was directed by John Milius, who up to this point had also directed such hits as Conan the Barbarian. So there you go. Patrick Swayze and C. Thomas Howell had already been in Outsiders at this point. Swayze and Jennifer Grey would later go on to do Dirty Dancing, of course. Jennifer Grey and Charlie Sheen were in Ferris Bueller's Day Off like a year later. This is actually Charlie Sheen's first big movie. So there you go. Leah Thompson has been in some things up to this point, but basically they're all relatively unknown actors. So there you go. Other things I can tell you about this movie, they actually had to take 8 weeks of special military training to get ready for this. One thing that I noticed watching this immediately is the major villain in this, Colonel Bella from Cuba, I guess, is actually played by 70s black exploitation star Ron O'Neal, who you might remember was the star of Superfly and Superfly TNT. So there you go. Speaking of Spanish and Russian throughout the entire movie. I'm impressed. Who would have thought Superfly had it in him? It is streaming instantly on Netflix, so you have that going for you. So check that out. It's a little dated, as you might imagine. There is no more Soviet Union. We're not nearly as concerned about Russian paratroopers swooping in. Okay, fine. Russian paratroopers are able to parachute in, no problem. The question I have is, how did the tanks get there? How did the Russian tanks show up literally a day later? They paratrooped those in as well? Maybe they did. I'm not a military strategist. Some things they did with this movie that I found kind of interesting is they took, in many cases, American tanks and fixed them up to look like the Russian tanks at the time. They actually had to have the American tanks drive backwards in order to more accurately represent what the Russian tanks looked like at that time. They also used actually fake tanks, like model tanks, kind of non-working tanks, that they built for this. And at one point, they were driving like to the studio in one of their tanks, and they were tailed by 2 CIA agents who wanted to know where they got a Russian tank. True story, or as true as Wikipedia can be. So there you go. Like I said, it is streaming instantly, so check it out. Send me your questions and comments. If you liked it, let me know. It sadly received only a 56% rotten on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't know how that can be. It is a nostalgic classic as far as I'm concerned. They're actually making, or as far as I know, they're done making the remake that should be coming out later this year, so look to your local theaters for that. I don't know how you improve on a masterpiece, however. Next week, I'll be going back to the horror classic from 1986, Terror Vision, starring a very young Chad Allen. If you have not seen that, it is streaming instantly on Netflix. So check it out. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. Don't forget to like our page on Facebook, The Original B Movie Club. And don't forget to say, what's up on Twitter at KD9575. As you know, I end every episode with a totally out of context quote. And here it is. Don't cry. Let it turn into something else. Let it turn into something else. So there you have it. That was my crazy Patrick Swayze. God bless his soul. That was my impression of him. Thank you for joining us. Like I said, next week, Terror Vision. And be well.